anniversary reaction because it's reminding us of past holidays. There perhaps at no other time of year. I mean, Pascha, of course, but depending on how we were raised, maybe in our home it wasn't always celebrated as much. But the Christmas season is just filled with so much ritual and tradition, and it's a minefield of triggers, right? Because inevitably, every Christmas, we think of Christmases before. Maybe it's when the kids were young. Maybe it's when we were young. Maybe people in our home that were ill-behaved during that time. Sometimes the more joyful we're supposed to be, the more miserable some people become. And so our heart kind of travels to past Christmases, and we remember things. And as I said, we're all subjected to the nativity x-ray of our soul this time of year, and we feel things more profoundly. People we're missing. And so we can almost experience ones for some people during the holidays. But these anniversary reactions, when they're too tough, can sometimes be indicative that there's unresolved grief or complicated grief. And so if there's complicated grief, the anniversaries are almost always going to be more difficult. And so rather than be threatened by that, it's an opportunity. So we want to reframe and retrain our brains to perceive all these things as opportunities, not as frightening or overwhelming experiences. And so with the anniversary reaction, what is it telling me? Man, this is just brutal. I remember one young man that I worked with many, many moons ago. His father had died in a plane accident when he was 16. And he came into counseling late in life, almost 40. And, it was mostly about relationship stuff, that he wasn't coming for that meaning. But it so often happens in counseling. The real issue kind of comes up. And he then, as we neared this anniversary, he was like, oh boy, yeah, for a week I can't get out of bed. Like literally, he didn't get out of bed for a week. And I'm thinking, his father passed away more than 20 years ago. What's going on here? And then we started to process the details more, and he never grieved because as soon as his father passed away, he was whisked across the country because his parents were divorced to live with his mom. All of a sudden is thrown into a new high school and was in survival mode. It's living with a step-parent that wasn't very pleasant, and there was no time to grieve. There was no space. He was in survival mode. And then that's what happened for the next 20 years. He never went back. And so when that anniversary reaction rolled around, he just couldn't function for a week. And so obviously this revealed something to work on in counseling. And he was always, and sometimes people, when they do that, we don't go deep. It takes energy to hold emotion at bay. And it can change what kind of person we are. So how it affected him was that he kind of went through life a little jaded, sarcastic, never went deep, stayed on the surface, very flippant, never got too close to people, steered away from the difficult emotions, and did it for decades. But no more. And so finally he agreed, now this makes sense. So we did the grief work. And it was such a powerful thing. And to see this gentleman, have to go back and start the work that he missed at 16. That was stunted because of the changes afterwards. And we did the empty chair where he would sit and talk to his father. Like, why did you fly that day? You should have known the weather was bad. And there was anger that came out. And then he flipped and sat in the chair and then spoke like he was his father because he knew what his dad would say. And he switched back and forth and he worked out the conversation. And he wept. And then he connected with a brother who was affected in a different way. So they started talking about it. And then he brought up all the newspaper clippings and everything and showed them to me. And how he studied for years. He was trying to study the details of the crash, but never grieved it. And then I remember him and his brother made a trip and went back to their home to revisit it. And guess what happened? The next anniversary rolled around and he was fine. You see, he silenced it. So what if he hadn't done that work? And he changed after that. He became more cheerful, a little more chipper, connecting. He was able to connect with people more because a huge amount of his emotional resources had been freed up. And I'll never forget that. And so that was blessed, what he did. It made him a better person. And it was a part of him that came alive. You see? And so when the anniversaries came around, he acknowledged it, but he was cheerful about it. Like, this is a chance to remember Dad. But it didn't knock him out. You see? So that's an example of kind of an anniversary reaction. And, and sometimes